Just got finished with a great podcast with none other than Jamie Lewis of Plague of Strength. And at the very end, he asked about wrist flexibility because he's been working on his own. And I thought, you know what, I will put together a video. And when I was done with it, I thought I should just share it with everybody because it's information that I think you're going to find very helpful, especially if you want to do, whether it's basic calisthenic movements like push-ups, crawling across the ground, things of that nature, all the way to the more advanced stuff like one-arm push-ups, handstands, L-sits, things of that nature. You're going to need to have at least reasonably flexible wrists. So I think this is going to help you. Give it a shot. I hope you enjoy, and let's take a look. All right, quick video on how to open up your wrists a little bit. All of this stuff can be scaled and made quite a bit easier, and much of it has to do with leverage, and I'm going to explain a little bit more in just a moment. The first one, this is something that I learned from a gymnast who gave it to me ostensibly as a shoulder stretch, but I barely felt it in the shoulders, really felt it a lot in the forearms. And so if you spend a lot of time closing your hands, this is going to come in very handy for you. So number one, what you're going to do, sit on the floor, and you're going to reach behind you. Now, depending on your flexibility, this might be as good as you can get, but as time goes on, you want to try to get in a bit closer, inch by inch. You don't want to rush it. Believe me, this is a really, really tough stretch. You're going to feel it very, very strongly, so take your time. But what you're going to do, you're going to reach behind you and then kind of inch your way back until you can feel just a very slight stretch in the shoulders, okay? You're not going for the shoulder stretch element of it, you're going for the forearm stretch, okay? Now from here, what you're going to want to do is, if you can manage it, tap your fingers or make fists and then stretch the fingers out again. It might be more of an intention for you because you might find that you really can't do it. So, as long as you're trying to move the hands around, that's the idea. What this does is it gets these muscles to fire up a bit, which can help to stretch these a little bit more strongly. You're probably going to find within about 30 to 60 seconds, you're going to be tapped out. You're going to start to feel like someone is taking a can opener to the inside of your elbows. So what you're going to want to do is, when you get to that point, you're going to just slowly sit back up and then bend the elbows. And you're really, really going to feel it very, very strongly, okay? That's number one. That can be made more challenging as you get stronger and as your wrist starts to open up quite a bit more. But first things first, just a basic floor stretch like that is going to take you a long way. Now the next one, this is something that you might want to start off with your hands on a wall instead of on the ground. But this is going to be something that's going to help to stretch the extensors of the forearms. And there are a number of different ways to do this, but what I like to have people do is put their fists together, kind of like the old UFC logo, if you've ever seen it. And what you're going to do is, these top two knuckles, you're going to try to emphasize those on the ground. And then from here, what you're going to do, you're going to put them on the ground like this. You want to keep your fists squeezed, so don't let your hands come open. And then you're just going to lift them up until you feel a stretch. Now, you might not be able to get this far, but it is certainly doable. And if what you find is, okay, let's say you get this far, all you're going to do is just going to kind of pulsate back and forth. You might also decide that you want to just kind of hold the stretch in that position. And again, you do not want to push anything. You don't want to try to force anything. It's very easy to overdo it with these stretches. You want to take it very easy. But again, don't let your hands open up. If the hands open up, it becomes very easy to do this. Not a bad thing, but you're not getting as much of a stretch, even if you're getting more range of motion. So again, just some light stretching back and forth like this. I usually do it for 10, maybe 20 reps, depending on how tight my forearms are feeling. Then finally, what you're going to do is we're going to stretch this part of the forearm. And what I like to do, there are a couple of different ways to do this, but this is a pretty good one to start with. You're going to grab your thumb and close your fingers around it. Then if you take a look at this bone on the top of the hand, that's what you want touching the ground. So it's like everything else on the hand and the forearm and the wrist and everything like that, you don't want touching the ground. Just this bone right here, okay? So what that's gonna look like is this. You're gonna be here on the ground like that, okay? Nothing else is touching, it's just that one bone. And you're going to bend the elbow just a little bit, okay? I'm pretty flexible. This is about as far as I can go. I mean, I could do something like this, but then you start to see that my hand comes off the ground. So it's not really ideal. If you have the flexibility, of course, you could do it on both sides. Just hold your thumb tightly and bend the elbows and continue. just like so. And again, something like 10, maybe 20 reps will go a very, very long way. Then, put your hands on the ground. You start to notice that you have a lot better mobility in the wrists. Should feel like things have opened up quite a bit. And for some very beginner routine stuff, this will go a very, very long way. Obviously, you can get a lot more advanced. For instance, there's a variation for the wrist stretch where you're here and you're doing this sort of a thing. Likewise, you can start doing stuff like this, fingertip push-ups, especially good if you're interested in hand balancing, but I would say until that day comes, start with those 3 things. So you've got the behind the back stretch, hold that for about 30 to 60 seconds. You've got the extensor stretch where you're in this position here and you are coming up or simply holding. And then finally, getting into this position, grab the thumbs, get this bone touching the ground and bend the elbows. Either do it for reps or simply hold that position. 10 to 20 reps, let's say 20 to 30 seconds, something like that. Anything for 1 to 3 rounds done every day, every other day is going to give you a pretty good return on investment. So give it a shot, let me know how you like it. And as always, have fun and happy training.